If this finds you, the next phase begins. The Arcturians, the 7 light bearers. You did not stumble across a concept by accident. Something within you opened a door. That small, startling yes you heard in the dark is not merely emotion. It is an invitation. The field you carry has shifted, and an intelligence that works in patterns and architecture has come close enough to begin rewriting blueprints. You may feel sudden pressure in the chest, like a slow, familiar hand settling its palm there. You may wake with a buzzing behind the eyes, or a clarity that arrives before the coffee. Dreams can change speed, fragments becoming vivid maps that pull on memory the way gravity pulls on leaf fall. Your nervous system may quicken, or you may feel a curious dampening, as if some old resonance is easing out of its socket. These sensations are not signs of failure. They are the language of reassembly. Before you go further, a clear and kind boundary. If any of what you experience overlaps with symptoms that concern you medically or psychologically, please consult a trusted professional. Energetic shifts sometimes mirror nervous system conditions. They do not replace diagnosis or care. This work sits alongside your other supports. It asks nothing of you that compromises your well-being. Now listen, there is a difference between activation and upgrade, and understanding that difference will keep you safe as the work unfolds. Activation is the entry point, a door opening, a signal flashing. It is the moment your attention aligns with a frequency, and something new can touch your field. Activation is often immediate, felt as a spike, the chest pressure, a high-pitched tone in the bones, an intake of knowing. Upgrade is deeper. Upgrade is structural. Where activation opens the gate, upgrade is the engineer moving through corridors with blueprints in hand, taking apart maladapted wiring and rebuilding the core systems to match a higher resonance. Activation awakens possibility. Upgrade reconstructs the original design that had been dormant or damaged. One is invitation, the other is reconstruction. Many of you are in both places at once. The gate opened last month. The engineer is already at work now. Because the Arcturians operate as restorers of energetic architecture, not as quick fixers, some days will feel like progress and other days like tectonic patience. This steadiness is important. Rebuilding takes alignments and recalibrations that may be subtle for a week and sudden the next. If you want stabilizing practices and a short guide to hold you through an early week of change, there is a free stabilizer sequence available that many have used as a simple container while the field remaps. If this message is touching something inside you, consider claiming that guide as a practical first step. Listen to the anatomy of what is happening. The Arcturians are not myth here. Think of them as an intelligence that repairs resonance.
They detect where resonance cores have drifted, where conduits have clogged, where timelines have unfurled into fragments instead of threads. Their method is precise. Scan, clear interference, insert harmonic recalibration, reactivate dormant nodes, and then stitch timelines so the new frequencies can settle, or sensation. As you recognize them, it becomes easier to orient, to anchor, to say, this is happening to me, this is for me, this is repair. Lightbearer 1, Resonance Core. If there is a foundation to all you are sensing, it is this chest-centered node. Think of the resonance core as the tuning fork for your personal field. When it is active and calibrated, your inner frequency holds steady across stress, opportunity, and intimacy. When it is misaligned, you feel dissonance, chest pressure that comes in waves, a sinking tightness that can mimic anxiety, or sudden expansions of warmth like sunlight poured through ribs. Common signs: an upright heat in the sternum that moves like a tide, a sense of an inner bell ringing at certain moments of recognition, shorter breath punctuated by a soft release. When the resonance core is being worked on, memories may surface not as stories but as tonal impressions. You remember how a particular flavor of belonging felt more than the specifics of a situation. What the Arcturians rebuild here: a stable fulcrum that aligns emotion, intention, and biofield coherence. They resolder the chest node to hold a higher resonance so the rest of your systems can attune without losing balance. This is not an injection of foreign energy. It is a recalibration to your original harmonic. Optional anchor. If you feel safe and are in a quiet space, you may place one hand over your sternum and say quietly, I breathe to my center. Make this optional. Use it as a stabilizer, not a talisman. Say it once, slowly. Notice the breath and the slight settling that follows. Mini hook. Listen for the lightbearer whose name feels like an echo of your childhood self. Lightbearer 2, Perception Grid. This one lives around the forehead, the temples, and the soft net of light that shapes how you interpret everything. The perception grid filters input into meaning. When it becomes dense or damaged, The world feels heavy with misreadings. Small slights become avalanches, neutral faces register as hostility, and nuance turns into black and white frames. Signs of the grid waking: sudden clarity behind the eyes, a thinning of mental fog, or the opposite, a momentary rush of overwhelming information that feels like standing under a waterfall of thoughts.
You might notice pattern recognition accelerating, sequences in your day snapping into coherence in ways that surprise you. What is rebuilt? The architecture that allows perception to be elastic and precise at once. The Arcturians retune the filters so that incoming data is integrated with less distortion. This is not about making you more gullible to suggestion. It is about restoring the capacity to hold complexity without fracturing. Optional anchor. If you choose, softly press the pads of your thumbs against your brow and think, "I receive clear sight." Hold that thought for the width of one breath. Let the phrase be a hinge, not a command. Mini hook. Notice when dreams stop being fragmentary and begin repeating a theme. Lightbearer 3, emotional conduits. This is the highway system between chest and solar plexus, the channels through which feeling moves and is processed. When conduits are clogged, emotions loop or freeze. Grief may feel like a closed valve. Joy may short-circuit into shame. Anger may hang like wet laundry that won't dry. Signs of an active repair: alternating sensations, heat moving between ribs and belly, tears that arrive without obvious triggers, sudden waves of relief that seem disproportionate to outer events. You may feel old, unresolved moods surfacing as if they were layers being tested for removal. What is rebuilt? Flexible, clear channels that let emotional information transit without getting stuck in patterns that once served survival but no longer do. The Arcturians are recalibrating flow so feeling becomes usable, not burdensome. This often brings a tenderness to relationships, and for some, a temporary redistribution of attachment patterns. Optional anchor. Only if it feels safe, place your left hand on your heart and your right hand on your belly and say, "I allow feeling to move." Say it once, like opening a gate. Notice the way the body softens after the phrase. A gentle reminder: if intense emotions arrive in ways that threaten your safety or daily functioning, please reach out to a mental health professional or a trusted support person. Energetic work and therapeutic care can work alongside one another. Lightbearer 4, intuitive pathways. This lightbearer is the system of conduits that link conscious awareness with deeper multidimensional currents. It is the channel through which insight travels, the corridor that delivers sudden knowing, guidance, and the sense of a timeline that hums with possibility. Signs of alteration. You may notice intuition accelerating into practical instruction, sudden ideas that feel like downloads, an internal voice that knows the next step, or a sense of timing shifting. Alternatively, these pathways may initially feel fogged. You sense a presence but cannot translate its language into action. What is rebuilt? Clarity of reception and translation. The Arcturians retune the pathways so that when guidance arrives, it carries a usable cadence. This does not guarantee that every impulse is correct. What changes is the fidelity of the transmission and your capacity to test it within context. If you are comfortable, breathe in and out 3 times and think, "I listen with clarity." Keep it as a gentle invitation to notice the first small hint that arrives afterward. Pay attention to the relationships that realign as these pathways come online. Some connections will deepen, others will slip away as your field demands congruence. At this point, some of you will notice these first 4 light bearers already active, threaded together like instruments in a symphony beginning to tune. The resonance core sets the key, the perception grid adjusts the tempo, the emotional conduits manage dynamics, and the intuitive pathways bring in the score. When they begin to work in sequence, you experience a new coherence that can feel like both relief and disorientation. Relief because things finally make sense. Disorientation because the you who made sense of the old architecture is different from the you being birthed now. This is where the hidden engineering steps begin to show themselves more visibly. Imagine the Arcturians' initial approach as a 3-phase operation: scan, clear, and calibrate. The scan is precise. It maps seams, finds interference, detects misfires. You often feel the scan as a cool, percussive awareness, flickers of recognition that move along your spine and across your breath. Clearing follows, and you may feel it as dissolving or loosening. Tight knots of habit unzip, repetitive thoughts unspool, and emotional residue lifts like dust. Calibration is the careful insertion of harmonics and alignments. It is the work that takes time, because structures must be reassembled in a way that will hold. There is a restraint in the Arcturians' approach. They do not overwrite but restore. The language they use in the field is pattern. They match a frequency and invite the original design to remember itself.
This often means you will remember more than you think you know. Memory access increases not as a flood of all-time data, but as threaded retrieval, relevant sections of the archive returning when you need them to complete present tasks. You may be wondering about the felt intensity. Why does it sometimes feel like a storm? Because structural reconnection requires energetic displacement. Old patterns that have been propping up an identity must fall away to make room for the original functioning. This is not loss so much as reclamation, though the body experiences reclamation as upheaval. Think of a house being rewired while you still live inside it. There will be lights off, some sockets silent, and fleeting inconveniences, but the aim is safety and a new capacity to carry current. A small, steady practice here is containment, creating personal boundaries that tell the field where stability resides.
That is partly why a simple stabilizer guide can be helpful. It gives a sequence to hold while the internal systems move. Practical containment is not about avoidance. It is about creating a breathable space while repairs are made. Now hold this image. The 7 light bearers are not distant saviors. They are archetypal functions waking in you. They will appear with their own timing. Some of you will meet them in clear order. Others will encounter certain bearers before the rest of the system is ready. Expect a mosaic, not a checklist. As the first 4 light bearers settle their initial alignments, currents will start moving toward deeper infrastructure repairs. When the resonance core can hold pitch, when perception can interpret without distortion, when emotions can move freely, and when intuition delivers usable guidance, only then can the heavier work be approached: memory reconstruction, frequency stabilization, and the opening of the higher self interface. Before I describe those deeper bearers, pause and acknowledge the small proofs you have had: a decision that felt effortless, a conversation that ended with a new clarity, a dream that replayed the same corridor until you finally knew which door to open. These are not coincidences, but calibrations. They are the quiet indicators that the engineers are in the house. I will say again, this process is not a replacement for any medical or therapeutic care you need. If sensations become overwhelming, or if you find yourself unable to manage daily life, please seek professional support. Energetic activation can intensify unexplained symptoms. Compassionate, competent care and community containment are essential. Between now and the moment your embodiment threshold begins to firm, there will be tests of resonance. Small things will happen to check your alignment: an argument that reveals where attachment remains, a job offer that surfaces whether you are ready for different responsibility, an old friend who reappears to show whether old patterns are still governing decisions. Do not read these as punishments. They are recalibration tests, opportunities to practice the new operating system as it is installed. In the coming days, you may notice another kind of sensation, a subtle acceleration of time. Not everyone experiences this, but many do. Time can feel elastic, as if days condense while inner processes expand. This is a sign that the timeline stitching has begun in micro ways. When your perception of time changes, so too does your relationship to urgency. Tasks that once felt urgent may fall away. Others will reveal themselves as crucial. This does not mean everything will become easy. It means the filters that prioritize experience are rearranging. Ask yourself, which relationships feel demanding of energy with little return? Which commitments feel aligned like breath? Your answers will not be moral judgments, they will be data. Use them.
Now, before we move deeper, receive one practical invitation, a brief centering that many have used as a first-line anchor. If you feel safe in a quiet space, inhale for a count that feels natural. Imagine a line of light dropping into your chest, and exhale as you mentally say, "I am present to this." Repeat this once or twice. Keep it simple. Use it as your marker when sensations surge. We are halfway to meeting the remaining light bearers, and for some of you, the work up to this point has already shifted your inner weather. For others, the shift is more like a lighthouse beam sweeping across fog. You see things in staccato until the sky clears. Both experiences are valid and often belong to the same person across different days. As the engineers proceed, remember this: you are being remembered, not fixed. That phrase is a compass. The Arcturians are not installing foreign code. They are aligning you with an earlier, more functional architecture of being. The effect of that alignment is increasingly visible outwardly. Choices become lighter to make. Certain opportunities accelerate. Some relationships fall into new shapes. These are consequences, not guarantees. They occur in relationship to the clarity of your field and the readiness of your systems. If you have been feeling rawness around identity, questioning who you are and what you want, that is part of the upgrade. Identity as a set of habits will shift. The question becomes less about finding a new label and more about learning to inhabit different energetic contours. In time, inhabiting those contours becomes embodied and irreversible. But first there is liminal space, and liminal space is often noisy. We will pause here, because the next steps deepen into memory architecture and frequency stabilization, domains that require more precise framing and care. Before we move into those corridors, take a steady breath and note the difference between being activated and being upgraded. You have now met the first 4 light bearers in outline: the resonance core, the perception grid, the emotional conduits, and the intuitive pathways. They are the instruments that set tone, interpret, move, and translate. The remaining 3 will rebuild the archive, hold the new frequency, and open the gateway to higher self-embodiment. Holding this threshold is the work of both courage and tenderness. You are permitted to feel protective. You are permitted to seek company. The body needs containment in order to allow change to proceed without overwhelming the nervous system. Listen now for a small, clear prompt within. Which of the first 4 descriptions felt like recognition? Which one made you remember a particular night or a specific ache? Let that recognition be a breadcrumb, not a verdict. It will guide you to the next practical step you choose to take. Soon we will meet the memory bridge, the frequency stabilizer, and the higher self interface. We will explore how timelines merge and how embodiment becomes an irreversible threshold. We will map the hidden engineering process in detail and give practical anchors to help you stay present through each wave. For now, gather the sensations you have noted: chest warmth, the thinning behind the eyes, the tide of feeling between chest and belly, those sudden, improbable ideas, and allow them to be the raw material of this restoration. There is one more thing to hold before we step forward. Community matters. This work is not meant to isolate. A field that supports integration keeps you held through the discomfort and gives practice in new resonance. If you feel called to a supportive container, seek one that honors your autonomy, your existing supports, and the quirks of your life. Membership is a resource, not a remedy. Choose carefully, as you would any supportive clinic or guide. You may find certain smells, tastes, or melodies unlocking a sequence of impressions that resolve like a puzzle piece clicking into place. In some cases, people report dream threads resolving into practical guidance, a corridor dream that points to a conversation to be had, or a recurring image that untangles an old relational knot. What the Arcturians rebuild here: pathways that allow memory to be accessed in context, not scattered like loose files. They reconnect the archive so that retrieval is selective and serviceable. Memories appear when they can assist the present task, rather than overwhelm with irrelevant detail. This reduces the sensation of being haunted by the past and transforms memory into a resource that informs integrity. Optional anchor: if you feel steady, lay both hands across your upper back and breathe slowly once, thinking, "I retrieve what I need." Allow the phrase to be a hinge. Say it once. Notice any softening around the shoulders or the arrival of a picture with meaning. A note on intensity: when the memory bridge is being reassembled, old narratives sometimes present themselves for editing. This can feel like grief, shame, or sudden tenderness. These feelings are part of reclamation. If memories surface in ways that disturb your day-to-day function, seek the care of a therapist who respects both clinical and spiritual paths. Energetic retrieval and therapeutic integration often complement one another. Lightbearer 6, frequency stabilizer. Think of this one as the structural ballast or the governor that keeps your field from swinging wildly when new harmonics are introduced. It sits like a matrix around your rib cage and pelvis, a network that resists resonance drift and smooths jitter across your system. When it is strong, you notice an enduring steadiness even amid shifts. When it is weak, small stimuli can feel amplified into disproportionate reactions. Signs of stabilization work: a return of consistent sleep patterns after nights of surge, fewer sudden mood swings, an ability to hold attention in the middle of shifts, a bodily sense of a steady hum rather than jagged spikes. There may be sensations of a gentle tightening around the torso, or an unmistakable feeling of being grounded in a new pitch. What the Arcturians rebuild here: a lattice that moderates resonance so recalibrations do not throw you off balance. This stabilizer is tuned to your optimal frequency range and adjusts subtly to environmental inputs, making the field more resilient to stress and sensory overload. Optional anchor: if you are seated and safe, place both feet flat on the ground and feel the contact. Breathe in and silently think, "I hold steady." Let the words be an invitation. Repeat once if needed. Mini hook. Notice when ordinary disruptions, traffic, sharp words, abrupt changes, no longer pull you out of center as they once did. That is often the stabilizer at work. Lightbearer 7, higher self interface. This is the gateway, the junction through which the multidimensional self interfaces with embodied mind and body. It lives at the crown and sweeps down like a column of light through the spine, bridging inner knowing with outer execution. When this interface opens, guidance becomes not only perceivable, but negotiable. You sense options, probable outcomes, and the felt sense of which path will align with your integrity. Signs of the interface coming online. A clarity that is deeper than decision-making fatigue. The sense that a particular timing is right, irrespective of external pressures. A quiet authority that does not need to be loud to be true. Some experience this as a physical corridor of warmth from crown to tailbone. Others feel a sudden, unavoidable knowing that moves them into action with little hesitancy. What the Arcturians rebuild here: a reliable channel that allows multidimensional counsel to be translated into embodied choices. They clear interference that once made guidance fragmented or overstated, and they mend the junction so that higher directives are carried into daily life without overwhelming egoic filters. Optional anchor. When you feel ready, place a soft attention at the top of your head and imagine a column of light descending through your spine. Whisper inwardly, "I meet my guidance." Use this as a short grounding check-in. A careful caveat about embodiment. The opening of the higher self interface is not a bypass of discernment. Guidance arrives as suggestion and felt sense, not as an absolute imperative. You retain agency. Test what you receive against kindness, integrity, and the practical realities of your life. Integration requires a balance between trust and testing. Together, the 7 light bearers reconstitute an operating matrix: resonance core, perception grid, emotional conduits, intuitive pathways, memory bridge, frequency stabilizer, and the higher self interface. When they begin to hum in synchrony, something shifts from possibility to process. You move from being touched by a transmission to being the one who holds it. Now, step with me into a clearer map of the hidden engineering process, because knowing the steps helps you interpret the sensations and maintain steadiness. The hidden process in more detail unfolds in interleaved stages. It is not strictly linear. Think of it as overlapping waves. Phase 1, frequency descent and signature match. The field begins with a frequency drop into your vicinity, one calibrated to your particular blueprint. You may feel this as a sudden openness or as a pressure that indicates resonance is aligning. This signature match is delicate. It checks whether the incoming harmonic can be supported by your current architecture. Phase 2, precision scan. The scan moves like a fine comb along your channels, detecting seams, nodes that have atrophied, and places where timelines have fragmented. The scan often registers as percussive taps along the spine, brief flashes behind the eyes, or a feeling of being seen from within rather than watched from outside. Phase 3, dissolution of interference. Where the scan finds distortion, there will be clearing. This is not an aggressive purge, but a careful loosening. Interferences that once provided protection are acknowledged and then made softer so that original capacities can return. You will experience this as loosening, sometimes as tears, sometimes as a physical ache that fades after a pause. Phase 4, harmonic insertion and recalibration. Once pathways are cleared, new harmonics are introduced, patterns that resonate with your original design. These are not foreign codes, but remembered tunings. Recalibration takes time. You may feel the new harmonic like a faint melody beneath the noise you have carried for years. Phase 5, reactivation of nodes and stitching. Dormant nodes awaken, and timelines are stitched so memory and present action can sync. You will notice more precise recall when you need it, and a feedback loop that checks whether the reconstructed systems operate coherently in your daily life. Phase 6, stabilization and embodied threshold. The final stage is held by the stabilizer and the interface. This is where the system proves itself in repeated small tasks, inconsistent sleep, incoherent decisions, in relationships that less often trip the old wires. When these patterns hold long enough, embodiment becomes the new baseline.
All along these phases, there is a movement between your consent and the field's intelligence. The Arcturians' method respects embodiment. They do not force, but they do persist. If you are resistant in some areas, the work will slow and reroute. If you are open, the process can be swift in places and patient in others. There is no shame in either pace. As changes accrue, your external life will begin to reflect internal realignment. This is the behavioral consequence of architecture restored. External effects and life realignment. Expect a reordering that is practical rather than theatrical. What commonly shifts first are the structures that reflected your former resonance: relationships, routines, and responsibilities. Relationships will test. Old patterns of interaction may no longer meet you where you are. Certain friendships may feel draining because they require the older version of you to show up. Conversely, new or deepening ties may arrive with less explanation and more ease. Some relationships will evolve, others will dissolve with unexpected gentleness. This is not a moral failing, it is fidelity to new resonance. Work and projects may accelerate in a very particular way, not necessarily by turning into instant success, but by clarifying which initiatives carry authentic momentum. Tasks that once took months of forcing may begin to realign and require less friction.
Opportunities often become clearer, not because the external world has conspired for your comfort, but because your inner filters now prioritize what truly matches your new architecture. Time perception continues to warp for many. Days may condense, priorities realign. You may feel a narrowing of urgency, a calm in deciding what is essential. This is a gift when held with humility. It can lead to the graceful letting go of commitments that no longer serve. Keep discernment active. The collapse of urgency is not an invitation to neglect, it is an invitation to invest consciously. Energy economics will change. You may need more sleep in spurts as nodes reconfigure, or you may find new reserves of focus for sustained work. Nutritional and somatic supports often prove helpful: hydration, rest, and gentle movement that honor sensation. There will be social tests, invitations that reveal whether you are ready for certain kinds of attention, family dynamics that surface old roles, financial checks that press on where identity and provision intersect. Treat these as data points. They are not punishments. They are opportunities to practice the new operating system in public. A crucial reminder: increased sensitivity does not mean decreased capacity to care for your livelihood or responsibilities. It means you have to manage energy more intentionally. Use boundaries and containment wisely. Community helps. The threshold. Indicators that embodiment is approaching. The threshold is not a single event for everyone. It is a converging of patterns that, when held long enough, become irreversible. Here are reliable signs, not guarantees, but commonly reported markers that you are nearing the point of embodiment upgrade. 1. Consistent, recurrent guidance that is actionable. When intuitive prompts arrive not as cryptic images, but as practical nudges you can test and verify, the interface is maturing. 2. Emotional flow without reactivity. You can feel strong emotions and not act from old knee-jerk patterns. Emotion moves through you without hijacking your choices. 3. Time recalibration that aligns with inner priorities. Urgent noise reduces and essential tasks come into focus with less friction. 4. Memory retrieval that supports present decision-making. Past patterns appear but are available to be read rather than replayed. 5. Stabilized somatic baseline. Sleep, digestion, and circulation move toward consistency despite intermittent surges. 6. Resonance-checked relationships. People who are resonant with the new field naturally occupy more of your time. Those who do not are gentle filters rather than crises. When several of these markers hold for weeks rather than moments, embodiment begins to lock in. The shift becomes less about intermittent experiences and more about an inhabited identity. That is the irreversible moment. The new operating system becomes the default. A master embodiment anchor. When you sense the threshold approaching, if you feel safe, place both hands on your thighs and breathe a measured breath. Silently think, I step into the life I hold. Breathe out. Repeat once. Use it as a short seal rather than a ritual. This is an invitation to live into the new field with humility and curiosity. A final caution on intensity. The threshold is often preceded by a compression, a short period where sensations intensify before settling. This is normal. Think of it as the last tightening before the box opens.
If the compression is destabilizing or accompanied by distressing symptoms, seek supportive care immediately. Energetic activation and clinical support are not competing, they are complementary. Containment and support. No one needs to cross this threshold alone. Containment does not mean dependence, it means being held while you practice new resonance. Practical containment includes a small set of trusted people, clear daily practices, sleep, food, gentle movement, and a field or container that offers regular support. Because many find value in a shared field, there's an optional member circle that functions as a supportive integration container. This is an invitation, not a requirement. If you choose to consider it, know that it is designed to be non-coercive, grounded, and clinically aware. What a supportive member field offers in plain terms: integration sequences, structured practices and recordings that help you process surges, stabilize sleep patterns, and apply the light bearer's functions in daily tasks. Nervous system support, guided somatic exercises and resources aimed at helping the body process recalibrations without overwhelm. Advanced transmissions and group alignment, periodic guided alignments intended to deepen the recalibration for those who choose to participate, coupled with community check-ins to practice new relational patterns. You will not be promised instantaneous outcomes. Membership is a resource for practice, not a guarantee of specific life changes. If you are already in psychotherapy or medical care, this container is meant to complement, not replace those supports. An invitation. If you feel called to deeper integration, consider exploring this member circle as an option. Choose what serves your well-being, consult with trusted providers, and honor the pace that your body demands. Closing, steadying into the embodied present. As you finish listening, return to your chest and notice what is quieter. Perhaps the pressure has softened. Perhaps the buzzing behind the eyes has thinned. Whatever you find, meet it with a gentle curiosity. You are in a transitional corridor between states. Do not rush to interpret every sensation as either problem or miracle. Treat them as signs of reconstruction. Permission is part of this work. You have permission to slow down, to say no with tenderness, and to take small steps that affirm your new resonance.
You have permission to keep medical and therapeutic supports active. You have permission to choose company and to decline what feels like coercion. These permissions are important because the field you are building thrives on integrity, not obligation. One last practical anchor to carry forward. Each morning for the next 7 days, if you wish, take 3 minutes and check in with the 7 phrases below. Say them silently, steadily, and once each. Use them as short touchstones, not magic bullets. If you feel safe, either aloud or inwardly, say, I breathe to my center, resonance core. I receive clear sight, perception grid. I allow feeling to move, emotional conduits. I listen with clarity, intuitive pathways. I retrieve what I need, memory bridge. I hold steady, frequency stabilizer. I meet my guidance, higher self interface. Say each once in a single breath, and then go about your day. These are short anchors intended to bring attention into the new architecture without mobilizing pressure or ritualized expectation. A compassionate reminder: if experiences feel overwhelming or if you notice changes that intersect with medical or psychiatric symptoms, please reach out to a licensed professional. Energetic activation can amplify pre-existing conditions. Seeking care is an act of wisdom and honor toward yourself and your process. If this message has found you in a place that wants deeper practical support, the Member Circle is available as an optional container to help you integrate. It offers guided integration sequences, nervous system practices, and periodic transmissions we described earlier. Consider it a complement to your other supports, a place to practice new resonance with others who are also committed to careful, embodied change. If you wish to learn more, the membership link in the description provides transparent details about what is offered and how it is structured. You have been meeting the engineers of your field. You have learned the names of the 7 light bearers who are guiding this restoration. The work is precise, patient, and often tender. You are being remembered into function, not fixed, not overwritten, but reconnected to capacities that belong to the blueprint of your being. Now, take one final breath with me. Bring attention to your chest. Feel the tide of your breath, and acknowledge the small proofs that arrived while you listened. A warmed rib cage, a thinning behind the eyes, a new pattern in a dream, a softer tide of feeling. Let those be your markers of progress, rather than verdicts of arrival. You are not alone in this reassembly. The field is active. The light bearers are at their posts. You are permitted to proceed with care, to hold boundaries, and to seek gentle support. May the threshold approach with steadiness, and may your embodiment be guided by integrity and compassion. If you are called to deeper integration and would like a community container that holds practice, care, and advanced alignment work, consider exploring the Member Circle. It is optional, practical, and designed to meet you where you are. Whatever you choose, know this: the next phase has begun, and the work of restoration is an honoring of what you have always been,
at the level of your soul's architecture. Walk forward gently. Live the small proofs. Breathe to your center. I hold the space with you as the light bearers continue their work.